Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Joy, Resistance, Hope, and Survival Book Club and Support Group on 22 Panels, where I swear to God, this month we will actually talk about Song of Blackbird. I will not fall off the deep end because even though this was a hell of a week in the country, I went marching yesterday and it felt kind of good, even though I'm allergic to crowds. So, I kind of stayed to the edge of the crowd. Uh, but I really enjoyed it. I was happy to see people. I wish that there had been more that didn't look like retirees, but yeah. Um, there were non-retirees. I don't want to make it out to be horrible. I just felt like there were a lot of people that's like, oh, so we've already reached the point where if you have a job that you could lose because your face is on TV, you don't show up. Um, which actually, as I was doing another reread today, I hit a point that I think um, both epitomizes why I love this book so much in this moment. Um, and I think a question that uh, a lot of us are grappling with right now. On page 95, if anybody feels like looking, um, right after she's discovered that Father Theo was arrested, um, she asks, I can't remember, it's not Frank, it's Eric. She asks Eric, how do you keep doing this? He says, the resistance work, it's tough to balance sometimes. Care enough to keep taking risks, but not so much that it destroys you. And Emma asks, and how do you keep it from destroying you? He says, I sculpt. Making art strengthens me. For me, I do a lot of podcasts. It strengthens me and entertains me and reminds me that there are cool things in the world. Um, but that was why I picked Song of Blackbird as the first book. We're at a moment in the United States where a level of resistance feels necessary, and it looks a lot of different ways, and it's at times heartbreaking, but Song of Blackbird is an uplifting story to me of both the 1940s story of Emma and the resistance of artists finding a way to make a difference, whether it was smuggling young children into foster families or forging large amounts of money to pull off bank heists. Um, but then also the the modern story of the granddaughter researching her history and finding, why are you guys beating yourselves up?
He's attacking me.
Yeah, I see that. I don't understand.
I'll add this real quick because we had a little side argument before we started of what we got out of this book, what our positions on this book. So I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm gonna call you out during this session here. So she when you said what you said, she's like, I told you that's what. So it's just a
Oh, so she was saying, I win. You
Yeah.
always win, Sam. You haven't figured that out yet?
I know.
You haven't wrapped around your finger. He likes to pretend that it's not true, but it is. He took a walk around the block for you.
I'm just gonna stay silent today. While I have the floor.
I don't think that's possible.
While I have the floor.
Go on ahead.
So you said something that I thought was important is about the art, and it really kind of opened the door and how important art is in therapy. And there's obviously I come from the camp that art therapy is just a derivative of projectives in psychoanalytic theory and psychodynamic theory, but in of itself, art therapy exists as its own form. Excuse me, of therapy, and I think that's what I did enjoy about the book is how art was utilized, from, creating the presses and whatnot to the drawings. Like it really kind of symbolized how art is useful in processing and going through and understanding intergenerational trauma and whatnot. So I thought that was good. But I have to start with something before that. So
Go ahead.
I liked the book. I thought the book was good. I must say, I like it better than Saga for sure. Like definitively,
How dare
I would
you?
rather read a chapter, another part two of this than another part of Saga. But I was upset after reading it when I started reading the whole thing, because I generally start from page one and then go. I don't generally read the forwards or anything until after, which is something I might have to change. But reading it, and then afterwards finishing it and finding out that it's not 100% true, upset me. It kind of let me down. In I know we talked about this off record, Ted, Lee, all of us, Sam.
No, it could be on record. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm saying, I know we talked about this off
Right.
record. So, and I didn't want to give you my answer because you asked me, like, we've had a month now to process. How do I feel now? And I purposely didn't answer because I'll tell you this. So I was saying that it pissed me off. It was a scam, kind of sham kind of thing. Like, what are you talking about? It's not even true, blah, blah. It's a good story, but it kind of like it was trickery, and it's funny because I did process myself a little bit. I reflected. And in retrospect, I was hurt because I got so involved with the characters. I got so involved with the story that I was walking along the path of many of the characters. I mean, I won't tell you which ones I was identifying with more, but I was walking the path of many of the characters, like seeing myself in that time and the duality, which I'll talk later about, the duality of the time presence, whatever. But I was seeing myself dealing with that, having recently lost my father. It was like it was really good to read it because I connected with a lot of the characters. And it was because I connected and walked through it that I was hurt that it wasn't 100% real, because damn it, my feelings and emotions were real. And then that's where I was, the immediate thought was like, you made me feel something that's alive, but, obviously in retrospect, it's like, it doesn't matter if it was true or false. It helped me feel something and it helped me emote, and I connected with it. And it just hurt that I was like, oh man, like it wasn't 100% real, but it was good. Like, it was powerful and meaningful to see that. So that's I'll give you that answer, Ted, and I'll leave it at that for now.
No, I will. I'm going to toss out a couple of quotes, and I'm certain that there are more along these lines. But Cassandra Clare, who wrote a book called Lord of Shadows, and I don't think this is the first version of this that I've seen. It's just the one that came up quickest in a Google search. But she said, fiction is truth, even if it's not fact. If you believe only in facts and forget stories, your brain will live, but your heart will die. And Mark Twain, where's the Twain quote? I had it a second ago and then I lost it. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yep.
But it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth isn't. So, I mean, I get how it would be very real to read this thinking that it was a strictly factual individual narrative, and then realize that it drew from lots of factual sources and put them together as one coherent narrative rather than a series of short stories. But I think that if you take that away, what to me, if this was a book of short, because as you pick up from the back of the book, like almost every element, right down to the pictures that were often taken, what's the secretly, I had a better word in my head and I lost it. The pictures, the photographs in the book themselves were acts of resistance because, they were taken by photographers that weren't supposed to be taking pictures of these things. Um, so you could have done this as a series of factual stories that had less emotion in them because the people are long since dead, and there's only so much you can tell their story. You can tell the facts of their stories, but you can't tell what they felt and what they were afraid of and what they loved. Or you can take all of those facts and weave them into a fictional story of a person that you can give the emotions of. Um, and to me, it's more powerful if you have the emotions, but the chances of being able to get that story. I mean, it's why autobiocomics are so valuable, even when they're about seemingly unremarkable people, right? You know, there's so many great autobiographies of cartoonists. And like because as it turns out, your job does not define you. So you can have a lot of stories about people who, if they were in a history book, would be lumped together, but they're not. Um, so yeah, I get where you're coming from, and I can't guarantee that I wouldn't feel that way if I'd gone in looking at it as pure nonfiction. And in that sense, I feel like I failed you by not making it clearer when I was selling the book that it was a historical fiction rather than true account. And
Yeah,
for
no,
anybody who hasn't read it yet, Song of a Blackbird, historical fiction, much truth woven into the story, but fiction. That's just my soapbox. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I should.
no. Yeah, and one, no, by no means did you owe me the to explain that the cautionary note, I should say. Obviously, it's in the book, so it's pretty clear in the book. It's just my manner of reading, how I read, that I was like, all right.
Is it in the book? I didn't go back to confirm that it was in the book. I didn't.
Had I not then looked at everything, it was like, oh wow. But yeah, it served it definitively has its place, like and I mean, obviously, it does its job because it had me emotionally invested uh, all the way, all the way.
Yeah.
Lee, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, and I can agree with that as well. Like for me, it was I did read the forward,
Thanks for
and yeah, thanks. Um,
kidding.
that's all my time. I for sure did feel that as well. Even though I read the forward, I read front to back. I still felt robbed. Like what I was definitely disappointed whenever I got to the end, even though I wouldn't necessarily say I was as hurt because I definitely did a double take. I had to go back as like, really, this is fiction? Like, but the pictures and the experience, like I can understand it. Like reading Diary of Anne Frank, like I can understand it. But
Right.
You're
yeah,
going old
ultimately
school.
it was what was that?
You're going old school. Diary of Anne Frank.
Yeah, it had a lot of like elements to that, right? It was the truth of it, the fear, right? Especially those aspects of like she's now doing the print job and the art and was it for sure had me worried and scared for her. And the like time breaks to now, like that storyline, going back to duality, it was like, wow, yeah, like that generational effect, like we still see that to this day, right? In our own experience. So for me, it was like, really, all of this? And but it for me, it was easy to reconcile because it's like, yeah, that was it's the experience that they were trying to portray, or at least that's what I got from it. And that fear, that worry, that sadness, that grief, even was very real for me. And it was like, I can only imagine like living through that time, how that could have felt in the moment. So, like, for me, I was disappointed, but it was easy for me to reconcile those feelings of like, wow, this is this is that story and this is what it portrayed. And it did it very well, in my opinion.
I think when you say like it was them trying to like the experience they were trying to portray, and I feel like they did that with the art specifically to say like, they used the real pictures, but the actual story that told, the story, the images that told the story were very basic cartoon images, and I feel like they did that on purpose because the pictures were the reality, the images were the story that was not real. So they're trying to tell this story that has like multiple different components of real, essence in it, but the pictures themselves are the actual real images. So it sets up for like, what are you actually trying to portray this story that has elements of like real accounts to it. And they do that through the pictures because the story in themselves, like Emma is drawn like, it's all very basic cartoon. Alma's a very basic cartoon. Like the granddaughter's a very basic cartoon. Everything is a basic cartoon besides the backdrop of the pictures, which have the most detail because they're actual real pictures.
Well, it made sense to me afterwards because, again, even the story itself, the duality of the time frames is that, it goes from, the 1940s and it goes to, the present, and it's going back and forth. But that's the same in the art because it shows the real pictures and then it goes, to like the comic format pictures. So even the art has duality, and it really shows like how, to me, how intergenerational all this has impacted, all this trauma, all this history has kind of impacted it because it goes, that dual role, real, fake, now, then, like it's interwoven so eloquently, and that's so. In hindsight, finding out made me see things that I wouldn't probably have understood at first, at that first read had I not read everything else. But yeah, that duality was beautiful. I thought that was really good.
I mean, one thing that made me laugh when I found out that you didn't realize that it was fiction, and please don't.
That's how I read.
What? No, was that I went in knowing it was fiction. And the one major plot point that I assumed was most fictional wound up being true.
Interesting. What was
The
that?
bank robbery. I thought the bank robbery was just a sensational addition. And then I'm reading through the notes. I'm like, holy shit, a bunch of printmakers actually robbed a bank.
Yeah.
Because you think you've heard everything about that time period, and then you find something new out, and you're just like, wait a minute, like
right.
They did what?
Well, and even if you don't think you've heard everything, like you think you've heard every type of story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You've heard about smuggling people out. You've heard about small acts of resistance. You've heard about violent acts of courage, whether it's by soldiers or whatever. But it's like, oh, wait, like both a bank robbery and replacing it with forged bills would really have an outsized impact on the whole situation because you just gave people who needed it a lot of money, and B, as people figured out that there were counterfeits out there, it was going to be really problematic. I mean, it's hard to even know how much havoc that might have caused. And I can't think of any other story like it. Of all of the closest I can come is there's a book that I read before I read it in school, but because I happen to have Norwegian heritage, but we read in school when I was in fifth grade called Snow Treasure about a Nazi occupied town in Norway that literally smuggled the town's gold out of the town by putting it under the children on their sleds because they could get down the hill. The Nazis didn't think twice about kids on their sleds, but they'd be laying on top of gold bars that were being.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Marie McSwiggan for anybody who wants to go read. the book, available through Scholastic.
So another pivotal part for me was the idea of intergenerational trauma, and it's funny because it hits home on a personal note for me as well. Obviously, being Latino, we have our history here, and it's funny because it reminds me growing up as a kid, and obviously English was a second language. I learned English as I was getting older, but I remember when we'd go to restaurants, my parents and us, and being embarrassed sitting at the booth when they were speaking Spanish, and my parents just kind of like, what's the problem? And then we just kind of look around because, I felt like all eyes on me, and I felt being watched, and, I had this, embarrassment, and I grew up in the era, and we still see it today, where it's like, hey, this is America, speak English, you're an American. It's like, and, it's funny because that's why I made sure that my kids spoke English first. It's like, even though I was taught like, hey, Spanish at home, you learn English at school, you need both languages. And it's like, no, I want my kids to make sure they learn English, blah, blah. And it's funny because that's just a subset of the trauma. But just in people I see, from Native Americans, African Americans, when you hear people just talking about like, well, you weren't alive during slavery. You weren't alive when, when people were getting scalped. Like, why? It wasn't it wasn't me who did it. It wasn't my parents who did it to you. Like, why do I have to look at that side? And it's just like, I think we don't understand the idea or the concept of how intergenerational trauma and or historical trauma, however you view it, works on people and how it impacts people throughout, the centuries, throughout the generations of people. I think we really ignore the impact of that. Like, we know it clinically that trauma changes your brain. We know that brain structures are changed. Trauma will, to a degree, almost permanently at some point, change your brain. So we know how significant it has, an impact it has on biology. But we don't really look at it how it has an impact socially, how it has an impact psychologically, familially. We don't really look at that, like how it impacts someone who has been, traumatized, a nation that's been traumatized, and then what we do to our children, how we pass that on to our children, and how our children continue to pass that on. We really don't look at that, or we don't even really work on that. Like, there isn't really good models of care, that are taught like at the forefront of how to work with intergenerational trauma. There's a lot of work on trauma, like dealing with vets in trauma, victims of, first responder trauma. We have all these programs for trauma response, but we don't really have significant programs to deal with intergenerational trauma. And more importantly, we don't have it like in school systems, like where the kids are there and we're seeing it, like how it's impacting them academically, why they have difficulty reading, why, to what stick and whose stick are we measuring them? And it's like, we really don't look at all those things. And I think that's the thing that you see with this book, that the idea of the duality is that, like, that's how far these generations have been affected by and the impact of what occurred. And it's something that I think books like this, or just people, podcasts like this, need to speak up and keep pushing that look, man, just because it was your great grandfather that got traumatized doesn't mean that I'm immune to it or not impacted by my grandfather's trauma or my great grandfather's trauma. Like,
right,
it still seeps through my blood, my veins, my history. It impacts me and it changes me and it affects me. That's, I'll get off my high horse. Sorry.
They're at least that was so well said that they're at least two different directions that I want to take it. So I'm going to kind of toss them both out and then try to shut up for a little bit. I mean, the first is, like, I often wonder if one of the reasons that older generations seem to be freaking out even more about my generation and younger than older generations have always freaked out about kids. I mean, if you look through history, it's always the kids today.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But particularly old white men seem to be freaked the fuck out by everything anybody under 40 does right now. It's like, why aren't you doing this? Why are you doing that? What is TikTok? Why is everybody gay now? Right? But where I'm going with that is, in one sense, this is the first generation of Americans that doesn't have direct war trauma across the board. We've been at war for most of my life, but because we have a much smaller fighting force overseas, because of changes in warfare where they're much farther from the front and less people die because it's completely volunteer versus being drafted, from the revolution onward, there's hardly a generation that, like, most men didn't have to go off and fight a war until post-Vietnam. Vietnam was, so I wonder how much of it is they're all ridiculously traumatized. We've got the generational trauma, but part of our response to generational trauma is like, no, I don't want to live your life. You don't look happy. There's a reason that I'm not doing things the way you did them. You don't look happy.
I think that's a really interesting take, because we had just spoken. I just finished reading The Sheriff of Babylon, and we were discussing it because Edgar has his very personal opinions about that read as well.
This is a quick reminder. You do know that Sheriff's not next, is it?
No. Vision is next.
Okay. That's what I thought.
We like to read ahead.
That's fair. I just wanted to make certain that
I was discussing it with him, and I'm like, I think we have very different opinions, because I was 9 when 9/11 happened. Like, I was
right.
not, I was more concerned with what my school lunch was going to be than
right.
the political climate. So
and go ahead.
I think you bring up a really great point in that, the generation now, and more so even like the generation, the new ones coming in, they, it's more of a look at why dig up the past when the past is so sad, when I can just focus on things now. And I think it's a really great example in this book, Anik,
right.
Is searching for like her grandmother's past. Like, she's trying to put pieces together. She's trying to find like, what is this like history that you've never told me? And I feel like a lot of people nowadays, at least maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger, they don't want to dig into their family history because they know it's not good. So why should I don't want to dig that up.
Well, see, I'm going to spin on that a little bit, because I don't think it's that simple. And this is, I literally pulled up Mallory McMorrow, who's best known for like a speech that I'm about to read part of from 2022, just announced that she's running for Senate in Michigan. And I immediately became one of her donors, because God, is she a firebrand, and she's the type of person we need. But like, one of her Republican state Senate colleagues decided to say that she wanted to groom and sexualize kindergartners in one of her fundraising emails as a way to try to make a quick buck, really only because McMorrow was against book banning.
I'm like, Barney, what is that?
But part of the speech she wound up giving the next morning, April 19th, 2022, on the state Senate floor in Michigan, and you can still find this on YouTube, and I encourage you to, because she delivers it way better than I'm about to. But she says, "I'm the biggest threat to your hollow, hateful scheme, because you can't claim that you are targeting marginalized kids in the name of parental rights if another parent is standing up to say no. You say she's a groomer. She supports pedophilia. She wants children to believe that they were responsible for slavery and to feel bad about themselves because they're white. I am a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom who knows that the very notion that learning about slavery or redlining or systemic racism somehow means that children are being taught to feel bad or hate themselves because they are white is absolute nonsense. No child alive today is responsible for slavery. No one in this room is responsible for slavery, but each and every single one of us bears responsibility for writing the next chapter of history. We are not responsible for the past. We also cannot change the past. We cannot pretend it didn't happen or deny people their very right to exist. So that popped into my head because I think most of the people who are saying, "Oh, why should I learn about that history?" It's not because it's because they do feel responsible. It's not because they think you're trying to make them feel responsible. It's because they're afraid of having to answer difficult questions from their kids because of things that they have done or said that they shouldn't have.
We call that white privilege.
It is white privilege. It's white privilege through and through.
I think it's a different take maybe for a younger generation to say like to dig into my parents' generational trauma is to dig into something that door can't be open. Like, we have a lot of people who come in or who are actually scared to come in because they're scared of what's going to happen if they leave their home and they can get caught or the deportation. So I think it's almost like a way of losing culture and distancing yourself from your family connections. Say, I'm not going to dig into the trauma because to dig into trauma is to acknowledge the fact that I'm a part of that, culture.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I can, and I hear both sides, and I don't disagree with either of you. But I'd have to add a part is that I look at it this way, and I'm very pragmatic when I clinically, psychologically, I'm very pragmatic. If I have to sit and dwell, and I'll be vulnerable for a second here. If I had to sit and dwell on my recent trauma, my father's death, it hurts, and I wouldn't function as well. I would be wrapped up in my feelings and emotions about him not being here anymore. It would hurt, and me hurting, I couldn't be proactive. I wouldn't be able to do what I have to do because I'd be in pain. And I can understand it from that side that no one wants to feel shitty. No one wants to feel bad. So it's easy to kind of like, well, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to, I'm not doing that. I'm not dealing with that. The problem is that in doing that, it's going to come out in some other ways. It's going to pop up in the worst ways or when you least expect it. Not that I avoid the loss of my father. Obviously, I do. But it pops up. So I don't know if I don't know if I fully agree that this generation just avoids the trauma because they don't want to look at it. They don't want to deal with it. I think a lot of it, unfortunately, and I'm probably going to say something a little bit controversial here, is that when you have privilege to choose not to have to look at it, it makes it very fucking easy not to have to. Because
absolutely.
Because I don't have that choice to not look at my historical trauma. I don't have that choice to be able to say, I'm not going to explore my parents' trauma because I lived through it every fucking
right. That's where I'll actually take it full circle back to what I was initially talking about with this is the first generation of Americans that most of them didn't have to directly be affected by a war, is that I think for a lot of these things that older people want banned or people closer to it who might be ashamed of it want banned, or sometimes people who aren't ashamed of it but were victims of it don't really want to talk about. There's also a level of jealousy, a level of projection in the fact that a 15-year-old learning history right now gets to choose the level of engagement they have. They can read New Kid and feel every ounce of the racism, or they can read New Kid and just enjoy the funny parts. They can read Song of a Blackbird and feel every ounce of the horror, or they can feel or they can read Song of a Blackbird and feel more of the mystery and whimsy and whatnot that's in it, because they're not reliving things. It's not pushing specific memories of them. It's something that they're interacting with sympathetically and empathetically rather than
historically in memory.
right.
You said something that struck a chord with me, like a positive chord, is that when you're talking about this generation isn't going through that war, it's I don't know if you know how much profound that is, because there's a few things wrapped and intertwined with that idea. Is that now I don't ever disclose my own political affiliation, and people are like, well, what are you? Like, you kind of play the fence, or you don't say, and I purposely do that. But I'll share this little piece, is that I'm a huge Captain America fan. Not only am I a huge Cap fan because I learned to read, speak English, reading Cap, but it also instilled in me these uber American ideals and values, because my parents couldn't teach me that part. They weren't American at the point. So I learned these very Boy Scout American values, and people like find it funny, like, well, I don't understand. So like, because I have like the American stuff all over, but it's like, well, yeah, it's really because it's about Captain America. That's why I have like
You got him tattooed on
I have
you.
him tattooed on me as well. But it's funny because you think about it, and if you look at it, is that war brings a sense of nationalism, brings a sense of unity in being American, and that's why you have all those, like, you're fighting against generations who went through war that were very unified as we're one, we're American right now because we're fighting this war. And when you have a generation that doesn't do that, that's where this kind of like, like, well, fuck America and all that. And it's funny because I find myself at odds. I'm like, I can't say fuck America, and I can't say anything against America because my parents came to this country and worked their ass off, and this country gave us the opportunity. So I have a lot
Wait
of,
a minute, but I heard that you just came here to destroy America.
I mean, I'm not eating.
Wasn't that what they were saying just like 5 minutes ago on Fox News? And it doesn't matter when we're recording it. It was probably said 5 minutes ago on Fox News.
And like I hear,
I'm sorry, Fox Propaganda Network.
and I always take it as propaganda, because I'm like, look, I know why my parents came here, and I know what they did, and I know what I got out of it. Before my dad died, he always said, I would joke, I'm like, hey, do you want me to bury you and send you to Mexico? He's like, for what? I'm like, because that's your country. He's like, I'm American. He's like, you're gonna bury me here. He's like, I made a life here. I built a life for you guys here. And to me, that was fucking powerful. It's like, wow, even throughout whatever we went through, whatever the struggles we are, and trust me, we could do a whole podcast just on my struggles, but just even through all that,
When you publish,
when I will, he still stood by his belief of like, this country still gave him the opportunity to raise his children in a better life. So that, and again, my dad was born in 1940, go figure, or something.
Right.
So war does unify you. And I think we don't give that part as much credence. That I think that's where some of the older generation doesn't understand the younger generation and go like, we have this like nationalism because we went through something to develop that. And the younger generation doesn't. We're not sharing the same language. We're not willing to put ourselves in their shoes and go like, I get why you don't. We're just looking at them like, you're anti-American. You're doing, and it's just like, it's not that simple. And then it's like, all we care about is America. It's like, it's because we're not talking the same language. Neither of us is willing to kind of give and go like, wait, I can understand that. Like, that's.
I mean, you're a psychologist, so God bless you for desperately trying to stay in the middle. But like,
I vacillate, Dad.
I believe it. I believe it. I am much less willing to say that particularly people under the age of 40 on the left are unwilling to try to listen and try to understand and try to empathize. If anything, it's that attempt, not just with the people that we disagree with, but with the people that we agree with, who are more likely to like. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling how much the people that were brought together by their dislike of the Vietnam War, etc., can now, despite the fact that they still agree on that, like absolutely positively think the other side is evil, talking about people that they went to school with, talking about people that they used to be friends with, sometimes talking about family members. And you know, I find that when I'm having the same generation or same talks with younger people, it's like, yeah, you know, people are more complicated than that.
100%. 100%.
You know, their bigger thing is, we get that you fought for this country, but did you really fight so that trans people had to use the bathroom that you told them? That was the American value that you fought for? I thought you fought for freedom. Shouldn't freedom be the freedom to love who you want? And again, you know, I hear the arguments. I honestly sometimes hear better arguments for empathy for people that I can't stand coming out of the mouths of people 20 years younger than me, who are more accustomed to having more people in their lives that are different, because we're not as monolithic as a culture. We're not as monolithic of a culture as we were 50 years ago for a ton of reasons. We don't have the same nationalist fervor because we haven't had to go to war together. We have way more different countries and way less acceptance for beating out your old culture to be part of America. We have 30,000 TV stations plus the internet rather than ABC, NBC, and CBS. You have all of the history of music at your fingertips, you know, through 4 different services, you know. So younger generations are much more used to, oh, I will share some things in common with my friends and some things not in common with my friends. I will like some things and they will not like, and they will like some things that I don't like. And we'll share the things that we like, and we'll have different groups of friends for different things. And like, what the fuck does it have to do with me if they decide that they want to do this or that? They're not making me do it. um
The expression "you can't teach an old dog new tricks" comes to my mind, in that as you age, there almost seems to be this loss of flexibility, adaptability. You know, and and I look at it like old people trying to change a DVD or VCR. You know, or
Yeah.
I laugh at my parents trying to do an iPhone. Like you progressively lose that adaptability, that that flexibility. And it's like, so the same would hold true in arguments and views. It's like people are stuck on views. You know, like. And I try.
Right.
I'm getting older, and my wife, criticizes me, and I try to be.
This is your advantage. You have young children and a younger wife, so you have people who will, because that also makes a difference.
It does.
Like the people I know who are older that have more young people in their life, that seek out people across ages, are more empathetic across ages.
More flexible, definitely.
Yeah.
And I see that in myself. It does keep me like. Because again, I think you said it right with being a psychologist. I want to understand both sides, whether I agree or not. And that's more of a personal thing for me, but it is, the goal is always to try to understand, like, and help people either way throughout it. Because even if I can help whatever side, just get through and understand, like, look, we all have our deficits. We all have our wrongs. Like, how do we get through this? And it's like, but no one wants to attach or read or look at other things, even something like bringing it back to the book, so we don't get off this, tangent here. It's quick to.
I was about to bring it back to the book too, so I'm curious as to whether we're gonna hit the same spot.
It's quick to dismiss the book as more propaganda, or it's quick to dismiss the book like but why should we have to read this? Why did it's just like. We we've lost the idea of simple messages. And I like the idea, just that sense of hope or resiliency. It's like, look, man, we can find a sense of hope in any book. You know, I've never been one for like ban a book. Like, look, I didn't even believe in like the idea, like when you think about like, you know, some other books, I got to be careful what I name here. Like, look, you know, I'm like, I'd rather have the choice of being able to read it or not than not having the choice, you know, having that choice taken from me.
I won't name the library, but I was struck and surprised to see Mein Kampf available in a library that I have access to. And while initially I was a little shocked, I then sat back and went, no, it should be there. If somebody wants to know what it actually says, they should be able to.
So let me say something to that, because so I own that book. I do have
believe it.
Of the book, and everyone's like, why do you have that? So I don't forget, and to know your enemy is to understand your enemy. And I'd rather say I've read it, I understood it. I have different Bible sets. I have the Quran. I have the Torah. Like, I want to understand the different. There is no evil book unless you have a real number. What is it? The Necronomicon. Unless you have that book,
like the
which I would say, like, all right, let's be careful with that book. You know,
but is it evil or is it just questionable to bring back the dead?
You know, I mean, see, that's right. I don't know it well enough, so I guess I would want to read it to understand it, but then I'm scared to read it. So unless it's like something like that, like,
right.
I think it's beneficial to read and understand and go like, all right, I want to understand that position. I want to know what went.
I mean, there are definitely books that I would prefer that people read in a certain context, but I don't get to decide that.
And there's certain books that I wouldn't allow my children to read until I knew that they had the mindset to be able to read. Like, you know, I still retain that right.
And in that sense is where I do somewhat like get where people who want books banned in schools or whatnot are coming from. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, but I'm looking at the books you're banning. I'm sorry. I've read too many of the books that you're banning.
Wasn't Charlotte's Web on there for a while too?
Charlotte's Web has been banned.
Wait. Why was Charlotte's Web
Charlotte's
banned?
Web got banned. I don't remember why.
No. That's propaganda. There's no way.
It probably was because of propaganda reasons.
Due to some people's disagreement with how the animal's speech in the books is portrayed.
Yeah, it was on a ban list for a long while.
Yeah, to me that's ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
well, but that's the point. Is like, you know, I don't necessarily want to fall too far down this rabbit hole, because it's a different podcast and one that we've done and one that we'll do again. Is like, particularly when it's being taught by a teacher.
Yeah.
To me, you either trust your teacher to give it context or you don't. And if you don't, there should be much bigger problems than the book being in the school.
Well, let's just keep it even more. Like, look, I mean, I'm going to leak a little bit here. Like, look, I don't just rely on the teacher, because let's face it, some of these teachers are terrible. Some of them are great. Some are mid. We have
that I agree too.
We have a whole line of them. But you know what I am is, and I'm many things, but one of the things I am is I'm a good parent. And when my kid brings home a book, I'm going to go, oh, so what do you think? How is it going? Like, read, you know, let's read it together. Like,
right.
It's my responsibility to walk them through that, just like I should walk them through what shows they're watching. Like, to think it's that easy where let's just ban it, it doesn't exist, is a fallacy. Two, to think that, you know, well, they're picking these books. Well, why are they picking these books? What conversations are you not having or having at home that they're, you know, like, it's our responsibility too to be there and understand what's going on.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's a simple thing. Like Song of a Black. I hope my daughter or my sons read this one day. Like, I think it's good. Yeah. I'm gonna ask them, hey, do you think it's real or fake? You know,
and they'll go, Dad, it says right here it's fiction.
Then I know they're smarter than me. I'm like, all right, you're ahead of me. But like, I want them to read stuff like that. You know, I can, you know, it's funny, like, because Song of does have the remind me of like the Diary of Anne Frank, and I know Lee, you mentioned that. It reminds me a little bit of Mouse. One of the earliest books that made me cry was in 4th grade, was reading the Diary of Anne Frank. And that book made me want to keep reading. I mean, I was already into comics on it, but it was just like, wow, like, holy cow, like it emotionally just, whoa. Like, so I want my kids to have that experience, because even if that book doesn't touch them, I hope some other book along that vein of thought touches them and inspires them to look into more things.
Well, just to look into history. Like, isn't there a quote like, if you don't study your past, if you don't study your history, you're bound to repeat your past.
Those who do not study history, see if we can
are doomed to repeat
attribute it.
Lee, study your history.
Oh, and that was the grade I was
most likely writer and philosopher George Santa Anna.
So Lee, you're from the South.
Remember the past, are condemned to repeat it.
I have to ask, Lee, you're a Southern belle. I mean, country boy.
Yeah.
But how do you do you?
How do I? Very, very, very carefully. Well, I reflect back on, like, again, the idea of history, and I'll share a little bit about my history. That, yeah, I do have people that I've been around, both in school and family members, that to some degree have said, right, you come to this country, learn English. I have had certain people.
Go to your house.
Yeah, you be careful. And I've definitely had people that have attended KKK meetings. Yeah. I definitely have been on that side of.
And he's got a big AR-15 on the wall behind. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Visual humor. I love it.
That was totally a joke. Lee is not in an armory right now. I emphasize not in an armory right now.
It's questionable, but we'll lean towards not right now.
I'm not in my preparation room for when the world goes.
I mean, to be honest, we can only see up over his shoulder. We don't know what's.
It is, yeah, many different things to process there, but I'll definitely say that being able to understand a side, no matter how much you disagree with it, no matter how much you loathe it, it's understanding, like, what it is that they're coming from, no matter, again, how much sense it can make at times or how much sense it doesn't make. And for me, when I think back on this idea of, like, intergenerational trauma and the story of Diary of Anne Frank and A Song of a Blackbird, I keep thinking about what's the sort of killer of hope. And the idea for me is fear, right? I hear this fear of, especially, I think with where I'm at in my life, I'm kind of caught in the middle of the older generation and the newer generation, even though I probably fall more on the newer generation. Of both sides are afraid, they are in fear. And funny enough, if they were just listen to each other for more than 5 minutes, they can understand that it's fear of things getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Where the older generation are afraid that things are getting worse because we're not sticking to our traditions or values. And the newer generation thinking things are getting worse because we're not moving away or growing or prospering.
Or sometimes, I mean, it's even, to me, it's even more complicated than that, because like, I think that sometimes we disagree over what the traditions or values are, or even whether the traditions and values are more mindset or specific things. You know, to me, the most traditional value in the United States is to try to become better.
Mm-hmm.
and therefore there should be no thing that we're so attached to, no moray or tradition that we're so attached to that we're not willing to transform it or move forward from it if it makes us a more loving, more united, more I don't want to say singular, because part of our power is being multicultural, but more accepting and supportive people.
Right. I and I definitely hear that a lot, and especially when it comes to both sides, right? It's this idea of change. Change is, um, let's face it, scary at times, for
Yeah.
sure. But I mean, that's a great irony, isn't it? Is that the only constant is change? Um, so
Constant. There are
very
many more consonants. Consonants are B, C, D,
I was
F,
starting to wonder that
G,
way.
H,
I'd say
J,
constant. In my head, I
K,
say
L,
constant.
M, N, P, Q, R, S, T, V, W, X,
Southern
sometimes Y and Z.
You know, I think I was tied. South Carolina is tied with Illinois for being some of the worst education systems. So, if that tells you anything, uh, but yeah, going back to what Dr. Ramos asked was like, how do I go about it? Because like I even find myself in this conversation, especially talking about white privilege, is I had my mic on mute. Like I find myself saying rather than getting defensive right away because my grad school program really focused on that. At times my social networks are very much tied to that, but I find myself sitting back and listening. And because there is still a lot more I need to learn about myself and my place in it. And granted, that is one of my blind spots as a white male, right? Is
Mhm.
that I need to kind of sit back and reflect on that. And especially when it comes to uh, how sometimes my decisions are based in privilege, based on the idea of just the fact that I am a man. So I could definitely say that, and especially a Southern man being in the Midwest, it's a very, very different culture and society. Uh, so for me, it is very important not just be open to different sides, but being open to different perceptions of that as well. And sometimes quite literally taking a back seat and just shutting up.
I think all of us are just quiet now, just waiting for you to keep going.
No, I'm conscious about saying constant and consonant again.
I'm sorry.
No
I'm
worries, no
sorry.
worries,
I shouldn't have called it out. I just
no
couldn't
worries.
help myself.
No, but that's how if we call it out, that's how we get better. That's how we do it.
Well, and I'll say, and I really want Sam and Edgar's take on this, because this is a white man who grew up in privilege saying this. More and more, I define privilege, and particularly white privilege and white male privilege, as those questions that when I hear them asked, I go, oh, that's the most obvious question in the world. Why did I never think of that? I'll give two examples right off the top of my head that like I've done that with recently. The first was both James and Big Jim and the White Boy, which are two conversations with Huckleberry Finn that were released last year, have central to them answering the question, why does Jim care? Why doesn't Jim ditch Huckleberry Finn the first opportunity he gets? He's a slave on the run. If they get caught, he's getting strung up from a tree on the spot, and Huckleberry Finn is getting taken back. and Huckleberry is the dumb one that's going to get them caught. So why does he care? And they both did a great job of answering that. And I also realized that as a white male, I'd always gone, well, he's just a nice guy and Huckleberry needs his help. It had never occurred to me to ask that question. I'm embarrassed that it never occurred to me to ask that question.
I think it's interesting, like doing like clinical supervision with students and practitioners that are not of the same like ethnicity of me, and while they're working with clients that are my culture and
what ethnicity are you? Because people can't see you.
Oh, I am Latino.
Are you?
I am. My name went from Chavez to Ramos.
But you're bicultural.
I am bicultural. I am. My mama's Italian and my daddy's Mexican. So I grow up in a multicultural family, eating lasagna one night and tacos the next.
Hey.
So
did you ever have them on the same night? Because that would be totally awesome.
All the time. That was Easter.
Right.
Or a spaghetti.
That was Easter. We had, carnitas, and we had, beef and peppers. But I find it interesting doing supervision and coming from like a bicultural standpoint, when practitioners who are, Caucasian, white, however they are seeing themselves, working with people of Latino communities. And, it's always, it always somehow comes up around like the daughters when they're 16, 17 years old. And it's just like, her parents don't let her get a job and they don't let her drive. And she feels, trapped within like this realm of, her family. And, I'm trying to enforce that she like gets a job, and she pushes to go out, and she pushes to get a boyfriend, and she pushes to do this, and she pushes to do that. And I'm like, why are you pushing her outside of what is her cultural norm and what her family is? Like, is it because you are not comfortable with the fact that like a 16-year-old, 17-year-old is not driving, is not working, like she's not sure if she wants to go to college? Like, are you uncomfortable with that fact? Is she telling you that she's uncomfortable with this? Or are you putting yourself, is this like your countertransference? Are you putting yourself on her and saying like, well, when I was 16, 17, I wanted to go out and I wanted a boyfriend and I want to do this and this and that.
Right.
When she's not of the same culture, like she's being she's raised completely different from you, where she is the norm in her culture. Like, so you're
well, and even when that's not true, how much do we project? I mean, this goes back to what we were talking about before. How much of, oh, we can't have our kids read that book, I don't want them to feel bad for being white, isn't like actual thoughts about whether or not they're going to feel bad for being white. It's like projection of our own insecurities, our projection of our own whatever.
Unresolved guilt.
Yeah.
But then the other thing I came across in the first issue of, I think I might even have it right next to me, so I can attribute properly, maybe not. In the first issue of the new volume, and maybe I don't have it next to me. First issue of the new volume of Bitter Root, their essays at the end, celebrating Black culture. And they're actually like focusing more on joy this time around. But one of the essays was from the Alabama coordinator of the Women's March, among other things. But in Alabama, they've renamed it the Womanist March. And she talks about one of the reasons that she believes much more in womanism than feminism is like feminism came about when white women wanted to go to work and Black women were sitting there going, yeah, we already have jobs. It's so great that being a woman is a choice to you.
Yeah.
And again, it's just something that had never occurred to me as, like how does the ability to go to work, being the center of the Equal Rights Amendment, feel to all of the colored women that have always had to work? Mm-hmm. That it was never a choice for. And again, it feels like the most obvious question in the world, but one that had never occurred to me until I saw somebody else ask it, because it couldn't not occur to them. It's like it's. I mean, my friend Marcus once talked about why he has no problem with people of color writing white people ever, um, but thinks that white people need to be very careful and make certain that they have appropriate readers and think hard and whatnot if they're writing people of color. And he's like, people of color have to figure out how white people work. It's survival. And it's also, if they're expected to succeed, to succeed in this world, they have to act white. There isn't a black version of success. There's a white version of success that you have to go be if you want to succeed. We know how white people think. We have to know how white people think.
There isn't a brown version of success either, let me tell you. I'll add that one in there.
Yeah, I think he said black and brown. Marcus is good at not
I gotta meet him.
And for that matter, Eve Ewing's new book. I don't know if any of you have read her new book, Original Sins, is about education in the United States from a Black and Indigenous perspective. She did leave out Mexicans, but did comment, I think, at one point that many of them also qualify as Indigenous. And the only reason she focused to those two is that they're the two cultures that specifically, without having any choice whatsoever about being here, were also stamped out and told you need to be white, and had schools built around, if you're going to be anything, it's going to be by the white standard. Native people by being here when the white people got here, and black people by being put on chains and brought here to make cotton and stuff for the white people.
So the blackbird.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it that they brought the family together at the end. That's joyous and hopeful. But I also just love the picture of a group of people that it's not that they and this is why I started with that quote that I started with about the balance. How do you maintain resistance without going crazy? They didn't go out and try to get themselves hurt. They weren't intent on being martyrs. They were careful. They tried to still find joy and actually live lives, but they also looked for ways to make a difference, no matter how small or large. And they took risks if there was going to be, and they accepted consequences if it came to that. None of them were afraid to accept the consequences. They weren't welcoming them, but that's a different thing.
I think, and the reason why I said so Blackbird, it's not that our conversation isn't good or to divert us.
No, I know.
The point for me is saying is that's what's beautiful about books like this, is that it creates deeper conversations into other factions, because we ask questions. It makes you ask a question that opens another question that makes you think of another.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. It's like, I know for others may think like, well, why do they keep talking about other things but not the book? Because that's what the book does, is that it makes you.
And that's, hi Mom, hi John, hi Adam, hi Britt. They all know that my general opinion of a book club to begin with is like, we use the book to talk about the world, ourselves, whatever the fuck we feel like talking about,
and how it feels.
This is not a book review. This is a book club.
like to stress
white women all over the world use book clubs as an excuse to get together and drink wine.
Wait, why are we not drinking wine during this?
That was your choice. You could. I chose coffee and water. It looks like Lee's got something a little more brown, so it could be soda, could be bourbon. I don't know.
I'm sipping on a bourbon. This is my
See. So you could have chosen to drink wine. This is on Zoom. It's bring your own booze or whatever you choose to imbibe.
But also making sure that comes with the risk of saying consonant instead of constant.
Yeah. Which let's be fair, there are worse things that you could have wound up saying.
Very true.
There's a reason why the term Freudian slip exists. Did you say touche or douche?
No. I said too true, but
okay.
I'll enunciate more. But I can say this too, because it did this conversation again regarding white privilege. To go back to that for a quick second, as it relates to the book, because I was taking a moment to find the gentleman's name. I forgot. It was Solomon, the brother in the photo. And what stood out to me was that in the book is he didn't want to confront it. He was actually against meeting up at first.
He was scared.
Very, very scared. And sometimes, and I can speak for this again personally, is that some of my work has been to look in the mirror and being able to talk and truly look at myself in the mirror. Again, go back to that idea of I'm a straight white man. So how sometimes it's very difficult for some to look and sit with that, whether it be white privilege, but also in this sort of generational trauma, historical trauma, this idea of like, I can only imagine what Solomon's thought process was, imagining him as a real character of, do I really want to go back and relive that? Do I want to deal with, as Dr. Ramos said in the past, this idea of pain? Like, because pain is uncomfortable. Like, no duh statement of today's podcast, but not a lot of people are willing to be uncomfortable, to sit in that.
Well, and I didn't get back to that part. Wasn't there also an element of like, to him, she'd been dead for all these years because he knew that the house that she'd lived in was gone. And here, part of the reason for him to go was to find out if he was a bone marrow donor, and if he wasn't, he was going to lose her again.
Yep.
I mean, I can't imagine what that would actually feel like to have to go, I have the ability to save the life of the sister that I thought was dead for 70 years.
Yep.
But I could also get there and find out that I can't. And know that I have a sister for a month after thinking she was dead for 70 years.
And to grieve her again.
Right.
Talk about trauma. But there's joy in that, resiliency in that.
There is.
It's like to have loved and to not have loved at all is the idea, the ideology,
It's better to have loved
than not have loved at all.
Yeah.
So he had a moment, and I think that knowing that moment that she did live a good life is good.
All right. I think, does anybody have any last comments on Song of Blackbird?
Highly recommended read. I don't care if it's banned. If it is banned,
it's not yet. I mean, it hasn't been out for very long.
But it's a very, very, very great read. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
I obviously definitely I do recommend that people read the forward and read the full thing before they just read the book. Definitely recommend that. But outside of that, yeah, it was obviously good.
Yeah.
It's a shelf book that I'm definitely going to put on my shelf.
Yeah, no, I bought it. I read a digital copy and immediately ordered the digital copy so that like the second I could have it to always have on my iPad, I would have it. But then like the next time I was at my favorite bookstore, I had them order the hard copy because I knew that I wanted. And I even sprung the extra $5 or $10, whatever it is, for the hardcover versus the paperback, because First Second is one of the publishers that releases hardcover and paperback on the same day, and you get to choose which you would prefer. And it's like, no, this is one that I want. I want the one that can be carried around, beat up, whatever.
I'm cheap. I went with the paperback, but
No, I get that too. Like honestly, there's a possibility that what will really happen is at some point I will get the paperback so that I have the hardcover that can be the shelf book, the one to show off to people here, whatnot, and I have the paperback that can be carried around and written in and.
so Sam thinks I'm crazy for doing that. That I'll read it digitally, buy it, and then buy the omnibus or buy a hardcover because I want one that goes on the shelf, one that I can take with me or whatever, and then one that I read on my iPad. And she thinks that's
Yeah, Sam, I can be like that too. I try not to be like that as much,
I do too, but it's hard to.
but I can be like that.
Yep. Yeah, crazy.
It's actually why I've been trying so hard to do more and more of my weekly comics digitally. Because if anything, with few exceptions, the ones that I actually care the least about having are just the floppies. I enjoy them tactilely to read them, and then they go in a box.
Yeah.
And there's only a handful that ever truly come out of that box on a regular basis. And a slightly bigger handful that like I care about knowing that they're in that box. You
But
know, I don't. What?
But they're never coming out.
I mean, not always, but yeah, no, it's a different. Yeah, yeah. Like if I needed to save money, it would be way easier to drop the floppies than the digital or the hardcover. Um, yeah. So next month, I have 3 ideas, but before I toss out any of them, and I did actually just share you guys on a spreadsheet, which we can add stuff to, add comments, etc. I'll start opening it up to other people too if they show up or ask to be on it. But does anybody off the top of their head have another book that they think would be good for the Joy, Resistance, Hope, and Survival Book Club and Support Group?
Me and Sam went right to the
Yeah.
your email here. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Let me see.
2 of those I already had in my head, and one of them I added while we were talking because it hit on something that we were talking about, and I went, "Ooh, that's another possibility." And Lee, are you having trouble opening it again because you don't have a Gmail account, and Google tries to make it hard for people who don't use their service, which is not me telling you to kneel to the man and use their service. It's me acknowledging that they make it hard.
Oh, you caught that, huh? No, I think I did get it. So I'm going to.
Well, I just know that you had more trouble getting into the Tom King document than everybody else too.
That is also true.
Apple makes it even harder. So like that's the advantage of using a Google shared doc versus an Apple shared doc.
Very much so. No, I was able to get into it. Thank you much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if we're sitting silently, I'm gonna have to start reading it off because nobody else is like saying they have ideas, and I don't want too much dead space.
I like the idea of the unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Okay, then why don't we do that? Next month is Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. I'm gonna say specifically, and like I totally recommend reading all of it if you feel like it. But specifically, I think we should read not the first solo series, but the first volume of the second solo series, because they like rebooted it almost immediately just because they were rebooting all things Marvel.
So wait.
So it's like volume 1 is.
So volume 2, number 1.
Yes.
Now, does the omnibus have the whole thing?
I think it does. Though actually, you know, as I'm quickly looking through, what would actually be really good is volume 1 and then volume 2, number 1. So essentially the first 12 issues. I would really recommend shooting for. Or I guess it's not even the first 12 issues. It's, oh, wait, they split it up even more. So I guess it's volume 1. Well, in terms of release, it's actually just volumes 1, 2, and 3. In terms of single issues, it's volume 1, numbers 1 to 5, volume 1, numbers 6 to 8, and then volume 2, number 1 to 6. But Squirrel Girl is marvelously wonderful. So, you know, if you manage to read all 50 issues by next month, you will not in any way, shape, or form regret it. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Sounds good.
Or if you use the mid-size graphic novels, the ones that were put out for kids, you'd essentially be reading the first one, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Powers of a Squirrel, and the second one, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, Big Squirrels Don't Cry. But yeah, I like the idea of Squirrel Girl. We can do Squirrel Girl. In the hardcovers, it's also volumes 1 and 2. So paperbacks, we're looking at volumes 1, 2, and 3. Squirrel Power, Squirrel, You Know It's True, and Squirrel, You Really Got Me Now. Mid-sized graphic novels, it's Powers of a Squirrel and Big Squirrels Don't Cry. And hardcovers, it's just volume 1 and volume 2. And if you're using Marvel Unlimited, you should be like doing the 2015 series, all of it, and then the first 6 issues of the 2016 series. But again, I cannot emphasize enough, if you wind up rereading it all or reading it all for the first time, you will not regret it. This is one of the understated gems.
So it's volume 2, Squirrel, You Know It's True, is number 2. And then I'm looking to see if I have them. And then it's volume.
Squirrel, You Really Got Me Now is volume 3.
You really got me now. I see it. And what's number 1?
Squirrel Power. Those are the original trade paperback collections.
Squirrel Power.
But it's on Marvel Unlimited.
It is on Marvel Unlimited. All of it's on Marvel Unlimited.
That's where I'll be reading.
Well, that's what I'm looking for too, just to make sure it's on there.
Yeah. So if you're doing it on Marvel Unlimited, read all of volume 1 from 2015, and then at least the first 6 issues of volume 2 and they tend to be quick reads. They're fucking hilarious. They're absolutely hilarious. And my challenge for everybody, and if you already know, don't say it out loud, is to identify what makes Squirrel Girl so amazing and different from any other superhero.
Okay.
Is Squirrel Girl,
wins.
Is it appropriate for kids?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
Because I
totally read this with, I mean, particularly if you're reading Kaya with your kids, you can do Squirrel Girl. Kaya is, there are more people I think that would find Kaya objectionable to kids your age than would find Squirrel Girl objectionable to your kids your age. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think Kaya is objectionable to kids your age, but it's got some things that might be considered mature themes, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely war.
Right. Occasionally some blood or limbs removed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's a good pick. Squirrel Girl for next month. I will put it into the calendar invite and send that out to everybody. I'll see you guys here in a couple of weeks for Tom King, and hopefully next weekend we can all say hi to Tom King together at some point. I know Edgar's planning to go Friday and Sunday. Sam, did you say if you're going to make it down?
I'll be there Sunday.
You'll be there Sunday. Lee, you going?
Oh, yeah. I'll be there Friday. Okay. Well, then we'll definitely have to communicate and connect and maybe arrange to have meals together or something like that.
When are you heading down?
Right now I'm planning to be there at least during the day. I don't really stick around for C2E2 after dark. But I'm planning to be there like during the day, open to close every day, unless I duck out for meals or whatever. I'm kind of hoping that I manage to have meals with some friends that either I don't see often or haven't seen anywhere except Zoom. But it's always a toss up in terms of how many things they wind up having planned for while they're in town, because we think cons are crazy when you have to man a table and do. I mean, you guys actually probably know more about cons being crazy than I do, because you often have lots of panels. But like when you have to man a table and do a bunch of panels and possibly meet with publishers or editors or whatnot, cons can just be a whirlwind for them. Which is why even when I want to spend time with them, I try to make it clear, look, only if it's something that will wind up helping you relax and enjoy yourself more, not if it's something that will add pressure because you think you need to do one more thing.
Well said.
Yeah, I look forward to getting to see you all next week. I look forward to since this happens to also be the Tom King Club, since we didn't have anybody else show up this week, I look forward to talking some vision with you in a couple of weeks. And yeah, thank you again for being willing to share this crazy journey with me.
You guys all take care. It's always a pleasure for me.
Yeah, so for 22 panels, this has been Psychocomicology and the Joy, Resistance, Hope, and Survival book club and support group on 22 panels. And we will see you after the next page.
Hey guys, this is Tyler from 22 Panels. I'm here to tell you all about our Patreon. If you enjoy this show, please consider donating to our Patreon to keep this show going. We have many different tiers, all different levels, to help you decide what's right for you. Okay, so get on out there to patreon.com/22panelspodcast.